Now I'm gonna get a channel, bruh. There it is.
Why is Justin adding me about it? I'm not the... Okay, whatever.
Speaking of which, I need to make this invite only. That's the last thing I need. Is Justin coming in here? What about Bingham Jr. and other Bingham?
No.
Alright.
Alex, you did add everyone instead of that channel. I don't know if you meant to do that.
What's the difference?
It's the same exact thing.
Doesn't add everyone not include people who are offline? Or am I wrong?
Channel goes everyone.
Oh, okay.
Welcome everyone to the first ever Better League Network stream. Hopefully the first to many, many more. This will probably go a day in history, July 22nd, 2020, that the first stream happened on Better League Network. I'm your standard host for a lot of streams, CMAS, and then I've got a full crew with me today. I got the usual, my standard co-host, sometimes regular host, Connor Rice. Connor, how you feeling today?
I'm doing well, C-Mass. Thank you for having me on, as you said, what is the inaugural stream of the Better League Network. It's an honor, privilege, and a blessing. And yeah, you can feel free to introduce the rest of the guys. We have a full crew here, probably the most legendary crew to ever be assembled in Better League history. I'm very excited to get things going. An elite league deserves an equally elite Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Other person I got in the booth with me, I can't even call it the booth, here at the table with me is Mr. Crazy Cody. Cody, how you doing today, man?
You know, I am doing wonderful. Just happy to dive into just another edition of the deep lore that is Better League football.
Thank you, Cody, so much for being here. And then last but not least, head of the league, head of the committee, I would assume, head of everything, gives the best head in the league. That would be Mr. Alex Gossett. Alex, how you doing?
Oh, fantastic, and I know it. Now, I am just very excited that all these fine football players can be inducted into our Hall of Fame ceremony.
So we're going to go ahead and get started with this here. Again, Madden 20 Better League Hall of Fame class. We're going to move to the first string. And look at this. What an idiot. There we go. Now we're on this one. Oop. Look at me. There we go. All right. This is here, the current members of the Better League Hall of Fame. From Madden 19, I'm assuming we didn't start this until that time frame. We've got about 10 members here. And first off, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Alex, who's one of the heads of the committee. And we're going to talk about, how he comes to the decision, how do they come to what they're looking for Hall of Fame members, how the process goes, and everything like that. I'll go ahead and let Alex take over on that one.
Alrighty, thank you, CMAS. So basically, the parameters to make the Hall of Fame is it's all drafted players, and we look at obviously the most talented and successful. We go off stats, legacy, and career stats, and yada yada. So for this cycle, we decided to go with 5 offensive players, 3 head coaches, and 5 defensive players. And Ocho sent out a post to everyone. Each person submitted up to 5 people. After that, we had our finalists, and then those finalists got sent to a committee I made up of senior league members, and we went through all of it, and we have chosen our 10. And I am excited to reveal that tonight.
And we've already got 2 brand new followers to the stream. If you haven't done so already, please get these followers up so we can go ahead and spread the Better League love to everybody. Cloud and Ben Tennant with the follows. Really appreciate it. List of names here. I'm not familiar with any of them, but I'm sure they are amazing Hall of Fame caliber teams or caliber talent. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Although there's a N'Keal Harry on there. That's interesting. That shouldn't be allowed. But anyways, moving on. Yeah, that shouldn't be allowed. Let's go ahead and move into the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the head coach inductions. And that'll be 3 members will be inducted to the Better League Hall of Fame. These coaches had excellent cycles. Let's go ahead and start off with the first one, and that would be Mr. Gordon Sinclair of the LA Chargers, also known as Alex G. You see his stats up there. 2 Super Bowl appearances, 2 Super Bowl wins, never lost in the Super Bowl. Great accomplishment. Biggest one being back-to-back Super Bowl wins, averaged 16 points or fewer in 3 seasons. Connor, your thoughts on Mr. Sinclair joining the illustrious Better League Hall of Fame?
Well, a very deserving Hall of Fame coach inductee, the first of 3, as you mentioned. And Sinclair really lit the world on fire to start off the Madden 20 cycle. Of course, who can forget the fact that they started the cycle with back-to-back Super Bowl victories. The first one, of course, over Justin's Green Bay Packers by 12, and then the second one, and one of the most legendary Super Bowls in Better League history against Ocho's Bucs 26-20. Of course, who can forget Ocho's famous fumble on the 1-yard line in that game, perhaps the single biggest individual play of the Madden 20 cycle, in my opinion. It's no secret, obviously, Alex, you can speak about this more in depth than I can, but it's no secret that the LA Chargers throughout the season were primarily led, by their elite lockdown defense. They had the single most dominant defense of the cycle all cycle long, and that's despite, facing elite offensive users every season like Chase, who, of course, who was in his division, who he had to play twice every cycle, and multiple playoff runs, making the playoffs every single season in this cycle. The defense was locked down. He was able to do enough offensively, of course, in order to win back-to-back Super Bowls. We'll ignore how it ended, of course, in the final playoff game, but he was of course able to largely dominate Chase's Chiefs throughout the cycle, and Gordon Sinclair, a very deserving coach to be inducted into the Better League Hall of Fame.
Definitely. Am I just going right in, by the way?
Yeah, I don't need to introduce you.
Totally. Yeah, sorry.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, I mean, there is no doubting the success of Coach Sinclair here. I mean, tough to, have a perfect record in Super Bowls, being that, when you get there, you win. And obviously the pedigree there, as you see on the screen, speaks for itself. 85-27 is no joke. 11-5 in the playoffs is no joke. And that as it says on the screen, as Connor mentioned, as we'll talk about, obviously that defense was just elite and dominant year after year. That D-line just attacked the passer, seemed like just so easily. Sinclair had his success early in the Super Bowls. Obviously, when Coach Collins joined the league, ran into a bit of a troubles there, but was still in the playoffs. Every season was still out there winning games, and so well-deserved induction here.
I would first of all like to thank Cover 2 Man and Joy Bosa for all my success. But I think I would have, like you said, Cody, when Dan joined, my Super Bowl success went out the window. I did not beat Dan once this cycle. If he wouldn't have joined when he did, I probably would have three-peated.
And that is Mr. Gordon Sinclair accepting his gold jacket. Let's move forward to the next head coach that will be inducted into the Hall of Fame for Better League, and that is Mr. Michael Collins of the Jacksonville Jaguars, ran by Dan. Huge legacy. Look at that win-loss record. Biggest accomplishment, 28-game winning streak. I don't care what league you're in. That's impressive. And 2-time coach of the year. Let's go ahead and get to my panel here. Connor, your thoughts on Michael Collins?
Well, I said this in the post-game ceremony after Michael Collins' third Super Bowl win, the final Super Bowl of the cycle, and I stand by this opinion to this day. I think Dan's Jacksonville Jaguars, Michael Collins' Jacksonville Jaguars, had the single most impressive cycle that any user has ever had in the Better League, going back all the way Madden 17, in my opinion. I mean, as it's on the screen, but 71-11, 13-2 in the playoffs. Those are just absurd stats when you really break them down. Of course, he went 19-0 in the 2024 season. That was highly impressive. 3 Super Bowl wins, as I mentioned, a dominant 37-0 shutout against Austin's Cardinals, and then he beat Ocho's Bucks and Ben's Bucks. Weird how that happens. 36-33 and 38-6, respectively. I mean, Michael Collins, once again, like the most deserving head coach nominee that there's ever been, as I said before, in the history of the Better League, and what a deserving Hall of Famer to have in this Madden 20 class.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as we rightfully so, Collins coming in here right after Sinclair, as we mentioned before, would seem like when Coach Collins took over the job of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they literally never looked back. It was a straight sprint to Super Bowl after Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, it's not perfect, and as Sinclair is with 2 for 2, but 3 out of 5 is pretty dang remarkable. In just 7 seasons being in the league, so that's really just, it's nothing like you probably will ever see, or maybe, maybe we see it again come Madden 21, but, it's truly just like extraordinary, coaching. And Michael Collins is very deserving, of this. He went in and 71-11 is just an absolutely absurd record. And the thing I think to mention on that is it's not like he was in some slouch of a division. He had Cloud, he had Little Alex at one point. He had Hoot Hike at a certain point. And so it's not like he was in, like tough divisions like the NFC East or something like that, where was, just, a lot of okay, maybe the NFC East was easy. But anyways, he was in a tough division. So it wasn't like he was, winning, however many games a year out of his division and getting these easy wins. He had some battles year after year. And so the success is extraordinary here. And this is, again, another well-deserved induction.
I would like to make note that between these two head coaches, they appeared in every Super Bowl this cycle. I believe there was only 1 or 2 AFC championships that did not involve both of these teams at the same time. Dan just took the league by storm. Obviously, that 28-game win streak was very impressive, but no matter what I could call, Dan always had something to stop it. Something to exploit it, a cover 3 beater, a YouTube cheese, anything. But yeah, Dan is very deserving and was far and away the best user this cycle.
All I'm hearing is talking about both these teams representing the AFC every single year. It just makes me think the AFC must have been pretty weak. If it's just the same 2 guys, I mean, that's all I'm saying. Not enough competition, like in the NFC where it's a different person.
Parity.
Yeah, gosh, you guys just aren't battle tested. Anyways, I
don't believe in parity.
I look at these numbers here, and you see 5 Super Bowl appearances, and 2 guys doing this 7 straight times. I mean, I feel like the league now has too much competitive users for that to happen again, but we'll see. We will see. Let's move on to the third and final head coach to make it into the Madden 20 Better League Hall of Fame, and that would be Mr. David Bosler of the Atlanta Falcons, ran by Ben. You see the record up there. His biggest accomplishment going 19-0 with the Super Bowl victory, 33-game winning streak, which I believe you can correct me on that if it's a Better League record. 1 Coach of the Year award. Connor, your thoughts?
So Michael Collins, as I said before, had the best cycle of any individual coach in the Better League, but I think the 2023 19-0 season that David Bolzer had was the single most impressive individual season that any coach had all cycle. Keep in mind, of course, that Atlanta was playing in what is, in my opinion, the single hardest division throughout the entirety of his Madden 20 tenure in the better league. You know, he had to deal with Ocho the entire time. He had to deal with Lucky the entire time as a strong playoff contender. He had to deal with the humble host first season, but he dealt with me pretty quickly. So keep that in mind when you look at those win-losses and the playoff records. You know, that is despite an extraordinarily difficult division. Tied Cloud's record, tied his record with the 33-game winning streak that included that 2023 season and then the 2024 adjacent season. One coach of the year, obviously the season he went undefeated. A very deserving candidate. You know, didn't quite have like the season-to-season consistency that Sinclair and Collins had specifically, but when you reach such high peaks as that, I mean, you're clearly deserving of a Hall of Fame induction, and David Bolzer, once again, a very deserving candidate here to be in the Better League Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no doubt. Bolzer obviously just had an insane run of that 33-game winning streak. Unfortunately, obviously, they ran into who many claim was a big snub, being Coach Cody Young, out of the induction, but you know, it did happen
no
to
one is saying
end.
that.
Did happen to end that win streak, and and keep him from just being tied with Cloud for the highest. Instead of having the record for number one, he's just tied for first. So, but no, all joking aside, Coach Bolzer and general manager Ben Tennant obviously just had an absolutely insane, really back half, or maybe not back half, but I'd say, I guess, somewhere between like middle of the cycle Madden, where he just, he got the players on his team, and he figured it out, and everything just started clicking, and the league really couldn't catch up. It was like a, it was like it was like a track meet where the gun was shot and they were just off to the races, and no one else could figure out how to catch up. People tried many things, nothing worked until the New York Giants found out something worked. But anyways, but no, I mean, 33-game win streak, 19-0, something that very few people have done, I believe. Obviously, Coach Michael Collins and GM Dan Raynone, and then I believe, GM Austin Raposa did it. Was it Madden 18 or Madden 19? But I don't know. But regardless, 19-0 in a competitive league like this, where Better League is to this day, no one can say that was team over scheme. The arguments are there. Team over scheme for certain people, scheme over team, whatever. But you don't win 19 straight just having a good team, or else Jared would be the best user ever. But he's and so me myself, I'll say it, like I like to poke fun or whatever it is, but Ben and I have a long history. We're brothers, and so great accomplishments out of Ben. Love to see him get a ring on his finger, finally, well deserved, and love to see Bolzer getting this induction here.
Ben definitely had a memorable cycle. His 19-game win streak, his Super Bowl, his hatred of Ocho. I believe he also had 4 or 5 rules named after him too. So he definitely was able to put up points, and was not afraid to. But David Bosler also coached the Tampa Bay Bucks in that controversial playoff run, ultimately falling to Dan. But it just goes to show that he can take any team and take it to success.
Yeah, if there's any argument of a guy that's team over scheme to him to take another team to the Super Bowl, I feel like that kind of trumps it, even if that team is pretty good as well. Some people have mentioning some spelling errors and some other number errors. And if you have any issues with that, please see Alex G. He's the one that I just copy and pasted. So forgive me for those numbers. I trusted him. And he will be denounced as commissioner for his mistakes. Connor will be taking over. Congratulations, Connor.
I'm not sure the league wants that, but I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, after the first 2 seasons, and then when you leave, I guess Alex can take back over. All right. And just some comments from the coaches in the chat. I could see Dan was saying that was the best run of his CFM life, was those 5 Super Bowl appearances. The 2023 Falcons were a force. Some people talking about Austin's Madden 19 Chargers also went 19-0. I guess Austin would know better than anybody. Do you agree with that? Oh, no.
Do I agree with
I don't know why.
19-0
I got confused thinking Austin was in here, but it's Alex, not Austin. Anyways, moving forward.
Yeah, Austin's Madden 19 Chargers went 19-0.
That is going to finish up the coaches. Congratulations to those coaches making to the Better League M20 Hall of Fame. We're moving on to forget the coaches, okay? Nobody cares about the coaches. Everybody cares about their players, and now the players, we're moving on to them. It's offensive players first, the offensive player inductees. Just to give you an idea, this is the setup. You'll see a photograph come up in the top left of the screen of a real NFL player of a similar position, or maybe a favorite player of that person's team. Who knows? Right-hand side will have the stats. If you know every single player that comes up there, you'll get a cookie. So congratulations. Let's go ahead and get it started with the first member. Cookies. Yeah, you do love cookies, and it will be oatmeal raisin. So don't get too excited.
That's the best kind.
Hey Connor, how do you feel about oatmeal raisin?
No!
All right, let's go ahead and move to the
Don't
first.
worry, y'all. I will post the context of that clip after this is over. I promise you.
That was you live. What do you mean? Moved on to the first player, Mr. Dwight. Last name starts with a C, a center of the LA Chargers. LA Chargers, Alex G, legacy score of 447. You see the stats up there. Only 14 sacks allowed through 3 seasons. Dwight Chiaverini, first member of the 2020 Pro Football Better League Hall of Fame. Connor, your thoughts of this inductee?
Well, Chiaverini was a dominant interior blocker for Michigan State, and then, of course, came out pretty late in the first round in 2022 and immediately made his mark. I mean, the thing is, like, I have less to talk about with Chiaverini than I do with any other player because Data Leaves doesn't have the game log. So, like, I don't know what his best games were. I don't know what, like, the standout performances were for the offensive line necessarily. All I can say is that every season, you know, you have to give the best dev'd and the most dominant offensive lineman a Hall of Fame induction, to make them become a Hall of Fame inductee, I should say. And Chiaverini was clearly the most deserving candidate here. As you can see on the screen, only 14 sacks allowed through 3 seasons. The LA Chargers had a dominant offensive line throughout the cycle, and Chiaverini was the linchpin, of course, at that center position. So congratulations to him, a much deserving induction into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think actually if you would ask Coach Sinclair and GM Alex Gossett, they would say that this man has some firm, deep Italian roots, and his last name is pronounced Chiaverini. But anyways, you know, all I have to say is I'm a little salty about this only for one reason, and that is Coach Young had his eyes on this kid in this exact draft, and I think Alex was maybe just a few picks ahead of me. And you know, and as you can see, you know, it was very obvious why we had our eyes on this guy right here. He was an absolute stud coming out in the draft. You know, he was a force to be reckoned with, and once he entered the league, he showed that. I mean, 14 sacks allowed through 3 seasons is absolutely insane, especially with the pass rush of Madden 20, and well deserved here out of Dwight Chiaverini.
If there's one thing I know how to do is the dev lineman throughout a whole cycle. I have 2 or 3 other O linemen in the Better League Hall of Fame in previous seasons, but Dwight came in immediately with a superstar dev. I believe he went to like 85 overall his first year, then shot up 94 his second and third year. He was an awesome player to have.
And there he is in the top left corner accepting his Hall of Fame jacket, Dwight Chiaverini, as Cody would say. Let's go ahead and move on. A few different nicknames that he had back in the day. He was known as the Italian Stallion, also known as the Venice Menace, Mr. Dwight Chiaverini. Let's go ahead and move forward to the next member that'll be inducted, Mr. Corey Crockett, the Rocket himself, out of Kansas City, who was taken by Chase in the first round, 27th pick of the 2019 draft. Connor, your thoughts?
He was one of only 2 offensive inductees in this class to be unanimously inducted. Everyone who filled out a form voted for Corey Crockett to make the Hall of Fame, and it is deservingly so, in my opinion. Of course, drafted out of Oklahoma State in the 2019 draft. He was a model of consistency throughout his Better League career. He never averaged fewer than 6.5 yards per carry throughout, again, the entirety of his Better League career. Those are elite stat lines. He had the 16th most rushing yards in Better League history in the 2022 season, but all of this is bearing the lead. He had a historic 11.1 yards per carry in the 2024 season. That is the most in Better League history that any running back has ever had by a full yard. It's unfortunate that the season was cut short by injury, but Crockett had what was the makings of being the single most impressive running season that anyone has ever had in Better League history. Once again, this is a man who frequently showed up when the lights were brightest. When you look at his final season, when you look at the 2025 season, his two best regular season games were against strong competition in Cody's New York Giants and Dan's Jacksonville Jaguars. He showed up when the lights were brightest, a strong running back, one of the best drafted running backs in Better League history, a deserving inductee. Congratulations to Coach Chase, on a deserving induction.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy part about Crockett, and if I'm recalling correctly, I believe this kid got drafted at a very low overall in Madden terms. A lot of people doubted this kid. A lot of people said, he was just fast. He didn't have the ability to break a tackle. He didn't have this. He didn't have that. And the Chiefs believed in this kid, and they coached him up. They said, let's give the ball to him. Let's give the ball to him and let him do what he does best. And that's what he did. I mean, this kid was like Tyreek Hill, running the football. If you can imagine Tyreek Hill as a running back, that I feel like that, and obviously the Kansas City Chiefs, had Tyreek Hill on their squad already, but it was so, the amount of speed that was just on this Chiefs team in general is just insane. And so Crockett, well deserved. I mean, some of the notable games that he had. So in 2021, week 14 versus the Jaguars. So, one of the better run defenses throughout the cycle, had 15 attempts for 224 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 14.9 yards per carry. I mean, that's absolutely bananas. And then again, another one to mention here, another great team, two Hall of Fame coaches, two Super Bowl winning teams, 2024 week 8 versus the Atlanta Falcons, 12 attempts for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's 21.5 yards per carry. I mean, this man got the ball in his hands and you just prayed to tackle him, basically. When you were a defense, you just hoped that somehow you could get a hand on him. But often, sometimes the hand wouldn't work. You just hope to somehow trip him, get him down on his feet, to get that knee on the ground, because this man was a force to be reckoned with, and is by far probably the best offense, or probably the best offensive player of this cycle, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely. I thought that Corey Crockett was single-handedly the most broken player in the whole cycle. Just impossible to tackle. That was Chase's obviously strongest offensive weapon against me. The only time I could stop him was to hurt him. I think I did that the last 3 seasons. But he could break away anything, break pursuit angles. He could juke. He could even spin. It's just unreal player.
Corey Crockett accepting his gold jacket into the Better League 2020 Hall of Fame. Congratulations again to Corey Crockett. Let's go ahead and move forward to the next player that'll be inducted. This is our first quarterback. You can see him, the silver fox in the top left-hand corner. That's Mr. Zach McDougald of the Indianapolis Colts, led by Cloud. You see his stats there, one of the better quarterbacks in this cycle. Connor, your thoughts on Zach McDougald?
Well, this is a triumph and an inspiration from Cloud's perspective. I mean, McDougald was given the bust label when he was initially drafted out of Kansas State again in the 2019 draft. I believe he was in the mid-60s overall when he was first drafted, and people thought that Cloud was crazy to have him starting for so many seasons, but Zach McDougald, or McDougald, however you want to say it, he eventually became the single best drafted quarterback of the Madden 20 cycle. His best season was in 2022 by far. He had a 73% completion rate throughout that season, 2-to-1 touchdown interception rate, 11.4 yards per attempt, and a 122 QB rating throughout the season. And that's despite going against a very strong strength of schedule. So good stuff there from Zach McDougald's perspective. In 2025, he had the second most passing yards in Better League history. He had 5,226. And then, of course, in the 2024 season, just the season before, he famously got 4,999, which is good for 11th most. He might very well be, just in terms of, he didn't quite have the playoff success, of course. Cloud never made a Super Bowl this cycle. But in terms of just pure stats and pure, regular season counting stats accumulation, he might very well be the best drafted quarterback in the history of the Better League. When you look at the stats, when you look at the totality of his career, at least in the regular season, you could very easily make that argument. So a sincere congratulations to Cloud, a sincere congratulations to Zach McDougald, a very deserving nominee.
Yeah, I mean, as Connor stated, a lot of people kind of question this selection out of the Colts. But I mean, the Colts believed in this guy. The Colts believed in this young man, and they gave him the reins, and he never looked back. I mean, he absolutely just tore up the league. Unfortunately, obviously the success wasn't there in terms of the playoffs, as you said, Connor. But he constantly was putting up big numbers. Look at the stats are there. 4 Pro Bowls, the 2020 Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was the 2020 best quarterback. Obviously, he probably had hoped to, get those dev upgrades to superstar, to get those abilities a little bit sooner. But, 224 touchdowns, 153 interceptions. That's a great stat line right there. Especially Madden 20, where a lot of people were chucking a lot of interceptions. I mean, myself included. That is, this man really knew how to get the ball to his receivers, make wise decisions. 104.8 passer ratings. 104.8 passer rating. That's just absolutely bananas. And I think Cloud would be disappointed, obviously, in maybe his playoff success, but I think he'd be proud in this young man, Zach McDougall, and his induction into the Better League at Madden 20 Hall of Fame.
According to our Better League statistician, Dan, of drafted quarterbacks with at least 10,000 yards, McDougall had the second highest career passer rating, only behind Mr. Josh Edmonds, another Cloud draftee from Madden 2017.
That's crazy.
Has a higher rating.
Josh Edmonds was a man that terrorized me all Madden 17 long. We were in the same division, so that's very, very strong company to be a part of. Congratulations again to McDougall.
Yeah. Big shout out to Cody with the unintentional pun saying handing off the reins for an Indianapolis Colts quarterback. So well done there. And that was Ben who caught that. I'll give him a little bit of props. Let's go ahead and move on to the next member that'll be inducted to the Offensive Hall of Fame. This is the first and only wide receiver, Mr. Dominic Wilkinson from the New Orleans Saints from Lucky. Amazing wide receiver, speedster for sure. Connor, your thoughts on Mr. Dominic Wilkinson?
Here's the second man to be unanimously inducted into the Hall of Fame. Once again, everyone who filled out a ballot voted for Dominic Wilkinson to make the Better League Hall of Fame, and it's deservingly so. People were doubting him, of course, out of Southern Miss, not exactly a hotbed of NFL talent, even though they did produce Brett Favre way back when, and he was drafted in the second round. So people were, questioning whether Dominic Wilkinson could really be that star wide receiver to carry the New Orleans Saints offense, but carry the New Orleans Saints offense he did. 2023 was the single best receiving season in Better League history, and that's just facts. 2,223 yards, 18 touchdowns, but get this, 25.8 yards per catch. I mean, not to cop one of Cody's phrases, but that is absolutely bananas right there. Dominic Wilkinson just dominated the league all season long. And remember that just like I was saying about Atlanta, New Orleans, Lucky's New Orleans Saints were a part of the best division in the Better League at that point, so that makes it even more impressive. He has had 3 of the top 10 receiving seasons in Better League history purely in terms of yards gained. And I do have to, Cody's going to bring up, I think, more specific games that I had, but I do have to give recognition to one of them. This past week 1 performance against Atlanta, he had 7 receptions for 363 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's just the Dominic Wilkinson experience right there. I mean, the man was a big play threat, a nightmare for any defensive user to contain, and a very deserving Hall of Fame inductee. In my opinion, I know Alex was just saying that Corey Crockett was the single most broken offensive player of the cycle. That might be true, but I think Dominic Wilkinson is the single most impressive offensive player of the cycle. A very deserving inductee. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was Ocho, but someone had, I think we were talking, and someone had said this statement, and I think it's very true and defines Dominic Wilkinson's career in Madden 20 Better League perfectly. And it was this. It was simply this: don't let Wilkinson get going, because this young man just absolutely, it felt like once he got 2-3 catches, you might as well just stop trying. Didn't matter if you double covered him, triple covered him. He was going to find a way to get open. He was going to find a way to break a tackle and pick up more yards after the catch. He was a force to be reckoned with when he got his. Obviously Connor just mentioned some of the stat lines or in his week 1 in 2025 versus Atlanta, but some other notable ones. 2023 week 8 versus Tampa Bay, another no slouch of a coach and team there. 6 receptions for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's bananas. And then week 17 versus Oakland in 2024 had 5 receptions for 221 and 4 touchdowns. I mean, when Wilkinson was going, he was gone. You couldn't stop this guy, and a well-deserved induction. One of the best, wide receivers that Better League has seen, since Madden 17, 18, you name it. I mean, this man was a force.
Fantastic player. I'm noticing from you guys from these stats from games that apparently a lot of these Hall of Famers are having great games against Atlanta's defense. So unfortunate for Ben, for him keep getting those reminded to him. Sorry, Benjamin. I'm going to take a minute for a little bit of an ad for Better League Network. Please, if you haven't done so already, please follow the stream so we can go ahead and get to affiliate level. Once we get to 50, we'll pretty much be a lock to go ahead and get to that, and then we can filter that. Those subs and everything that y'all are doing can go right back into the league for more content. So please follow the stream if you haven't already done so. And if you're not in the league, feel free to follow, because there's going to be commentary and Madden 21 stuff here coming up in the next month. So please go ahead and follow. Let's go ahead and move on to the next member of the Hall of Fame class. Another quarterback. Wow, that's Brett Favre from Green Bay. Could it be Bingham Jr.? It is not. It's Eli Raymond of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by a player who must not be named. There's his stats on there. Connor, your thoughts about Mr. Eli Raymond?
Obviously, Eli Raymond's longtime coach was involved in the greatest scandal of the cycle, but in my opinion, that should not impact the player's Hall of Fame candidacy, and he is a deserving Hall of Fame inductee here. Again, he was drafted with the 24th pick out of Clemson in the 2022 draft. It tends to be that the better users end up getting the Hall of Fame nominees for obvious reasons, and Eli Raymond was not one of those, lottery, top 10 drafted QBs, but regardless, he finds himself in the Better League Hall of Fame here. Only played for 3 seasons, and his best season was this last one in 2025. 3,432 yards, 37 touchdowns, 22 interceptions with a 111 passer rating. Now, it does have to be said, of these five offensive players, Raymond probably had the weakest Hall of Fame candidacy, and there was a debate over whether to let him in at all. But in my opinion, Eli Raymond still well deserving. Made 2 Super Bowls, obviously with 2 different coaches, but that does not change the fact that he made 2 Super Bowls, and you do have to give him respect for consistently showing up when the lights were brightest in the playoffs, except for the first half against Dan, it has to be said.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the thing to be said about Eli Raymond is this Tampa Bay Bucs offense was undoubtedly a run first offense. But I think the reason why Raymond deserves this induction is he still got his in a run first offense. He still performed at a very high level, was very limited his mistakes, didn't throw a ton of interceptions. I mean, 78 is a lot, but obviously 119 touchdowns. So you can debate this back and forth, but in my opinion, when you have a run heavy offense like the Bucs were all cycle, and Kalen Ballage really just getting his, and then you have a quarterback like Raymond who has performances like this, in 2023, week 12 against the Colts, 16 for 20, 295 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 2024, week 9 versus the Bears, 16 for 20, 330 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. 2025, week 11 versus the Jets, 18 for 22, 226 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So, I mean, this man, when he was asked to get the job done, he got the job done, and when, so you really can't fault this induction. You could debate it, but we can pull hairs and whatever it may be, but I think Raymond is deserving of this, and congrats to Ocho and the Buccaneers.
Congratulations to Eli Raymond being inducted into the Better League Hall of Fame for Madden 20. That'll do it for the offensive players. all of them. Congratulations. But let's go ahead and move on to the defensive player inductees. The first one, I believe, was unanimous. Connor will get back to me on this one. And that was Mr. Maurice Little out of BYU. There, his stats there, led by the Jacksonville Jaguars of Dan. He has actually sent me a thing to read, so I'll go ahead and read that for you all now. Through his brilliant 5 years in Jacksonville, Maurice Little was nothing short of a champion. Maurice provided unrelenting pressure and leadership to the extremely potent Jaguar defensive front. When the games got bigger and the moments got more critical, Little always showed up when it counted the most. He was a key factor in 5 consecutive AFC championships and 3 Super Bowl titles. It's safe to say, I don't think we would have won as much as we did without Maurice Little. Connor, your thoughts after me reading Dan's thoughts on his player?
Very well spoken, as always, by Dan. And yes, you were right, CMAS. Maurice Little was the only unanimous defensive player to make it into the Better League Hall of Fame, so congratulations to him on that. I will not get into the scandal that plagued his college career because this is a Better League Hall of Fame. Cody and CMAS, if you want to, feel free. But I'll just, I'll focus on the man's accomplishments purely. We won't get into that. His best season was 2024. He got 22 sacks across the season as well as 39 tackles overall, and he was a model of consistency, as Dan was alluding to there in his statement. Had over 20 sacks 3 seasons in a row. Much like the user himself, Dan, Maurice Little showed up when the lights were brightest, showed up in the Super Bowl. Across the 3 Super Bowl wins, the 3 Super Bowl rings that Maurice Little has, he got a total of 6 sacks across those 3 games, and he was without question the defensive MVP against Ben's Tampa Bay Bucks, not Ocho's, but Ben's Tampa Bay Bucks in this most recent Super Bowl in 2025. He didn't necessarily put up the most mind-blowing, career accumulated stats necessarily. That wasn't really, what he was asked to do with his Jacksonville scheme. But playoff impact plays an impact. Team success plays an impact. Little showed up when the lights were brightest. He is a very deserving inductee, and I congratulate him for his Hall of Fame jacket.
Yeah, I mean, some notable games here out of Little. 2 games against Indianapolis where he had 1 game in 2022, 6 sacks and 5 tackles. Another game in 2024 against the Colts, again, 5 sacks, 6 tackles. And then a game in 2023, week 17 against the Browns, 5 sacks. The thing here about Lil, I think that's really interesting to me and sticks out is look at this stat line, fellas, here. 256 tackles, total tackles, 256 tackle for losses. This guy wasn't necessarily a speedster that was going to chase you down the field if you got past him, but if he got you in his sights in the backfield, you weren't getting away from him. This man, whether it was a running back, whether it was a quarterback, it doesn't matter. If he got you in the backfield, you were getting wrapped up and you were getting brought to the ground. 93 and a half sacks over 5 seasons. That is, I did the math, and I believe that's a little over, if we're just to average that out, that's basically about a little over a sack a game. So, this guy literally was guaranteed a sack every time he lined up on the field, which is not something that you can say about many people. Obviously, you can say what you want about the Madden 20 pass rush and stuff like that, but this man put in the work. He got drafted, got the starting position, and just went to work, And so Maurice Little obviously was a unanimous vote for obvious reasons, and congratulations to him.
Maurice Little, one of the few, I think the third, and that wraps up all the unanimous players that were inducted. Maurice Little, our first defensive inductee for Madden 20 Better League Hall of Fame. A few people in the chat saying he's a fraud, but we won't get into it. This is a celebration. Moving on to one of the most legendary members of the Hall of Fame class, and that would be Mr. Nick Swardson, linebacker from the New York Giants, led by Crazy Cody. 95 overall. Look at all those stats. There's a ton of them. By the way, I don't think that he had 256 tackle for loss. I'm pretty sure Alex probably made a mistake. But Connor, your thoughts on Mr. Nick Swardson? That would have been amazing if he did. Connor, your thoughts, Nick Swardson?
That would be absolutely legendary, but yeah, I assume that's a mistake. I'm going to keep this brief because I want to hear from, the man himself, Cody Youngson, on this illustrious Hall of Fame career from Nick Swardson. But It was interesting, he definitely had two distinct halves of his career where he was asked to do very different things by this New York Giants team. The first two seasons specifically, in 2019 and 2020, he was a ball-hawking, pass-disrupting linebacker. Specifically, he got 27 interceptions across those 2 seasons, which is highly impressive. I mean, that's, only a little under an interception a game. Very impressive stuff there by Swartzen, excuse me. And then in the second, I guess, the second 5 seasons, or the second 4 seasons, I'm sorry, I forgot that the first season wasn't part of it, but in the second 4 seasons, he was a relentless enforcer that just looks to remove souls from bodies. He forced 21 fumbles over those. His interceptions kind of took a dive, but again, that wasn't what he was asked to do. He was asked to just dislodge the ball at all costs, and he was one of the hardest hitting linebackers in the better league across that 4-year stretch. Beyond that, Cody, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm so proud of this kid right here. We took over this team in Swartzen's rookie year, and this team, to put it politely, was in shambles. There was holes everywhere, and we just needed a guy that was going to command the middle of the field, and that's what we asked Swartzen to do. We said, we just need you to go out there and make plays. And to your point, Connor, obviously, like you said, it started the first half of his career with 27 interceptions, where that's where we need him, and as this team started to grow, and this young man started to just become an all around, just absolute complete football player. We said we wanted him to just go do what he did best, and that was he would just find the ball carrier and just absolutely end their lives. And he was a heat-seeking missile. It seemed like no matter where the ball was, he wanted it, and he wanted it on the ground. And so 27 forced fumbles is absolutely insane. Seven fumble recoveries, and that is also insane. Obviously, not all of those are going to be the fumbles that he forced. But I'm pretty confident at least 2, 3, 4 of those were. And so 13 defensive touchdowns, 47 interceptions of his career, 47 pass deflections. I mean, this man was just an all-around absolute monster. I mean, this is a Luke Kuechly type of player where it's like you just want to keep the ball away from him. And, I'm just so proud of this kid. Some notable games he had, week 11, 2020 versus Dallas, 6 tackles, 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown. 2021, week 3 versus the Saints, 5 tackles, 4 picks, 1 touchdown. 2022 versus the Titans, 5 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, 1 touchdown. I mean, that game's absolutely bananas. 2025, week 12 versus Denver, 5 tackles, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. I mean, Nick Swartzen, in my opinion, it is absolutely criminal that this man was not a unanimous vote, even above Maurice Little. I mean, Maurice Little obviously was an absolute game wrecker, but I think if there's anyone that deserved to be a unanimous vote, look at this stat line and look at this man's career. I mean, it is literally decorated unlike anything you've ever seen. I mean, the picks, the tackles, the fumbles. I mean, you name it, this kid did it.
Cody, a man of little words about Nick Swartzen. Very passionate about his players, and if anything, there was a rating of 100 for heart for this player right here.
That's absolute facts.
Let's go ahead and move to, I think, a defensive back here. Oh, no, we got one more linebacker, Mr. Rajon Haynes of the Pittsburgh Steelers, led by Jesse. Ended up being a 90 overall. Connor, your thoughts on Mr. Rajon Haynes?
Jesse, I know you're watching this stream right now. I want you to stand up wherever you are because I'm about to go on a rant in your honor. Of course, the league thought that Maurice Little should be the only unanimous inductee. It sounds like Cody thinks that Nick Swartzen should have been the only unanimous inductee. I think it is beyond criminal that Rajon Haynes was not a unanimous inductee into the Hall of Fame. I mean, this is not a unique thought. This is something that Dan actually said during the Hall of Fame committee proceedings, but he is quite possibly the single best drafted pass rusher in the history of the Better League. There were 2 straight seasons where he got the 5th most and 13th most sacks in Better League history, and in his final 4 seasons, he got a total of 121 sacks, which is almost 2 sacks per game across 4 seasons. That is absolutely ridiculous. And I get that Jesse's Steelers didn't quite have the team success that, of course, Dan and Cody had throughout their career, and thus may not get the recognition for his unique drafted players. But Rejoining Haynes, in my opinion, was the obvious best drafted player across this Madden 20 cycle. His best individual season was 2024. He had 60 overall tackles and 36 sacks. Again, that's over 2 per game. In my opinion, the single best individual defender of the cycle. As I said, it is criminal that he was not unanimously inducted, but fortunately, he does find himself in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I think like we said, I think there was two or three unanimous votes on offense, and I think maybe I don't know what it was going on with the committee that was kind of determining this, but yeah, I mean I really think Haynes, Schwartz, and Little, those 3 guys really deserved some unanimous votes of, yeah, for sure. I mean, as you just said, I mean 121 sacks in 4 seasons is absolutely absurd. I mean, this man Haynes took the field and just was a force to be reckoned with. Some notable games here for you. 2 in 2023, 1 week 6 versus the Browns. Had obviously a very heated division rivalry there. 10 tackles, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. So 10 tackles, 5 sacks, and forced fumble. I don't know if I said sacks. I'm losing my mind here, but I mean, just to talk about that. I mean, like we said, obviously this man's an outside linebacker, and he wasn't just a pass rusher. He did a little bit of everything. I mean, the fact that he had 5 sacks and then also 5 tackles on top of that and a forced fumble on this game. I mean, this man was just everywhere on the field. Week 15 versus Oakland Raiders, 8 tackles, 7 sacks. That's in 2023 as well. 2024, week 8 against the Bengals, 8 tackles, and those were all sacks, and then a forced fumble. I mean, I 100% agree with you in that, Connor, in that Haynes, and I think Dan had a good quote here in the chat. It's a shame that Haynes wasn't talked about more. I mean, 100%. I think a lot of people, like to gravitate towards the guys that win the Super Bowls or are in the playoffs and do this and do that. But I mean, the players that make plays need to be recognized. And if there was any defender that made plays, it was Rejoining Haynes. And this man was a game wrecker. When you lined up on the opposite side of him, you were terrified. You put 2-3 blockers on him, whatever you could. You didn't know if he was going to drop back in the pass or if he was going to rush the pass. He was a game wrecker. You didn't know what to do with him, and well-deserved induction out of Haynes here.
Rejoining Haynes accepting his gold jacket into the Madden 20 Better League Hall of Fame. Congratulations. And yeah, he should have been talked about more because honestly, when I was sent this list, I was like, who the hell is this guy? I never heard anybody ever talk about him. It's a shame. It's a shame. He should have been talked about more, but he still got the recognition to make the Better League Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Yeah, I agree, Justin. Jesse should have flexed him more, but Jesse's just not that type of guy. Just not that type of guy. Let's go ahead and move on to the first member of the secondary to be inducted, and that's Mr. Taven Peppers, the cornerback out of Kansas City, with, I think, the only person to have multiple members inducted into, at least players-wise, inducted into the Hall of Fame. Chase, getting Taven Peppers into the Hall of Fame. Connor, your thoughts about this cornerback?
Yeah, I mean, drafted out of UConn, which is not exactly known as a hotbed of NFL talent, but of course he immediately made his mark and is now in the Better League Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Taven Peppers on, he was really the defensive linchpin, for the Kansas City Chiefs throughout the Better League cycle, and he deservingly finds himself in the Better League Hall of Fame. Across his 5 seasons, he had 49 total interceptions. That's very impressive. He was an elite pass disruptor who showed up in the playoffs and in big divisional games. Even though, maybe Chase as a user didn't necessarily want to show up against Alex a whole bunch, and even though the offense didn't show up, Taven Peppers' efforts cannot be denied. Despite the fact that most of those were losses, Taven Peppers would show up consistently. He didn't necessarily have the most mind-blowing stats in the world. I mean, of course, three-time Pro Bowler, that's very impressive. But he doesn't have the most explosive stat line in the history of the world, but he was for sure one of the 2 best drafted secondary players of the cycle. Of course, we'll get to the other one in a minute. And once again, he was a catalyst to the Chiefs' pass defense. Taven Peppers, a deserving Hall of Fame member.
Yeah, to your point there, like you just said, Connor, this is maybe where if my rumors that I'm hearing are correct, this is where the committee had a bit of a tough time starting to deliberate. This is where things got a little bit difficult. Obviously, Little was unanimous. Swartzen and Haynes weren't unanimous, but they were fairly easy decisions for the committee. And now we're getting to the place where, maybe the stats weren't there, in terms of the three guys previous, but there's no doubting that Taven Peppers was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, 362 tackles, 49 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, 10 touch. I mean, it's not like this guy wasn't just a pass protector. He wasn't afraid to get dirty and get in there and stop the runner, shed a block from the wide receivers or whoever was trying to lock him up on a run play. And, he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. And so this is a much deserved induction here by Peppers. The stats, like we said, maybe aren't as beautiful or crazy or whatever it may be, or as the three previous, but definitely well deserved here out of the Peppers and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Congratulations, Taven Peppers. You see him top left corner accepting his gold jacket. You want to hear something funny, guys? Alex has been gone for like 25 minutes. I don't think anybody in chat even noticed.
Nobody did say anything.
No, I'm kind of surprised. Nobody was like, "Hey, where's Alex?" Or not a single person.
Nobody said anything. That's
no
mean.
respect.
It's not
you
me.
guys are all kicked from the league.
They'll just start over with brand new people. All right, last Hall of Fame member on the defense has a special place in my heart, and that's Mr. Darrell McClain for the Arizona Cardinals, drafted by Mr. Austin and then finished up with CMAS. Here are his stats. Connor, your thoughts on this gentleman, Darrell McClain?
Once again, much like I did with Swartzen, I'll keep my thoughts on McClain brief because I want to hear from, the man of the hour, CMAS, on this one. But it has to be said, his best season was in 2022. He had 15 interceptions that season. Again, that's almost one per game. And for a non-user player, for an actual cornerback, that's highly, highly impressive in Madden. Very impressive stuff there from McClain. He was a consistent tackler. He would wrap up the ball carrier pretty consistently. He had over 50 tackles in all of his final 3 seasons. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Cody, you can add, his individual best game performances if you want. But CMAS, I'm just going to let you finish this one off, honestly.
For sure, yeah. I actually, to correct you here, CMAS, I actually think your twin, Samoan, actually was the one to draft this young man before he departed from the better league for like the 87th time. I believe he was the one to draft him, and then Austin took him over. And then obviously you had were his coach for the back half of BL as well. But Darrell McClain, I from experience, being the coach of the New York Giants, was a guy that you just didn't want to even look to his side of the field, because you knew if you threw the ball over there, even if it was one-on-one coverage, he was going to make a play. It seemed like he was glued to the wide receiver the second you snap the ball. He was absolutely one of the more elite cornerbacks in the league, and deservingly so with his induction here. And to our point that I said before with Taven Peppers, 453 tackles is very impressive for a DB. I mean, that is that's linebacker type tackles we're looking at there. But that's out of a DB. I mean, this guy put in the work. 88 pass deflections, 57 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 8 touchdowns. Some of his notable games, and this one hurts my heart a little bit, and I think I literally remember this game to a T. 2020 Week 9 versus the New York Giants, 3 tackles, 1 sack, and a forced interception. I mean, this guy could not get out of the New York Giants' head. And then in another game in 2020 Week 12 against the 49ers, a sack, 4 interceptions, and a forced fumble. And then 2022 Week 8 versus the Seattle Seahawks, 4 tackles and 3 interceptions. I mean, McClain, he's last on our list here. And McClain, I think has a more decorated, pedigree, I guess, if you will. And I think probably, if we are going, not this list necessarily isn't in order of like who gets ahead of who, but, McClain, to me, it was better than Peppers. Not that Peppers wasn't good or doesn't deserve his induction, but McLean was an absolute force, and proud of the Cardinals and all the coaches and the success that they had, and McLean sticking with that team, even though there was some coach turnover throughout the cycle. McLean, sticking to his team and sticking to who he was.
Yeah, big shout out to Austin for quitting and leaving the team, or else I might not have been able to be here and do this with you. So big shout out to Austin for doing that. But Darrell McLean, I mean, this is a guy when I took over the team. And here's the guy. So when I took over this team and I saw him on the roster, and I was just in shock of the quality player for somebody who loves cornerbacks. To see Darrell McLean on this roster, it's somebody that I just left him on the other side. I just put him on the best player on the other team and just left him alone, because I just knew he was just going to take over. And for the majority of the time, except for maybe a couple of catches against X Factor DJ Chark, he did that. He shut down everybody he played against. So Darrell McLean, amazing player. Shout out to Oos for drafting him, Mr. Simone, if that's the case. Congratulations to Darrell McLean for making it the last member of the Better League Hall of Fame and making it. Here's all the members here. Look at them. Beautiful. Yeah. Big clap in the chat. Connor Moan in the chat for making the.
I'm just so excited to be here, guys. So excited.
Let's jump into chat here real quick, because they're jumping into the next topic I want to talk about.
Snubs.
One thing that Ben said, he says, I think Chase just re-rolled Taven Peppers again. That made me laugh. People just saying that, they knew that Alex was gone, just too scared to say anything. And then Justin actually made a funny joke. I just assumed Alex couldn't talk because Cody was taking up all the airtime.
That's rude.
Wildly disrespectful, but we'll allow it.
Some names in the chat, because the next thing I want to talk about are the people that you think got snubbed out of the Hall of Fame. A few names to mention: D'Angelo Martian, that was mentioned. Devontae Allen was mentioned. Glenn Battles was mentioned. KJ Burke was mentioned. None of these names I'm familiar with. Spencer Lankster, I'm assuming
It's
it's
like
Justin,
Morty
so he's probably
saying
trash.
means.
Yeah.
Sure.
But all these players, who do you guys think, and I'll start with Connor, who do you feel like was the biggest snub that should have made the Better League 2020 Hall of Fame?
I definitely did not just pull up the Hall of Fame committee chat in order to get help on this. Do not accuse me of such. I mean, head coach Cody Young, man. I mean, the level of disrespect towards my man Cody Young, son. He had a pretty consistent. Of course, I mean, the division was not the best. We won't get into that, but I think we could have very easily had 4 head coach committees in there, or head coach inductees in there. Excuse me. Now, every other head coach who won a Super Bowl made it except for him. As far as the offensive and defensive players that go, I mean, Jabari Riddick had one of the single most dominant rushing seasons in Better League history. Now, my rationale, I was one of the people who kept him out of the Hall of Fame, and my rationale was that, one elite season does not make a Hall of Fame career necessarily, but you could very easily make an argument that Jabari Riddick would have deserved it. And then on the defensive side, I don't know, man. I mean, D'Angelo Martin sticks out. Brian Hayes, I suppose, sticks out. But yeah, I think primarily for my end, it would be, Cody Young's son was snubbed, and then probably Jabari Riddick as well.
Yeah, I would, this might be shocking, but I would tend to agree that Coach Young was snubbed.
Hold on, sorry, Dan, can I interrupt you? Paul Styles is not a snub, Dan. The man was force-fed beyond belief. Like, it is illegal, frankly. Mike should be banned for how much he force-fed that man. Shut up! Anyway, continue, Cody.
Yes, anyways. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think, obviously, the winning streak wasn't there that Ben and Dan had, and the the multiple rings that weren't there that Dan and Austin had. But I would agree that I think consistently, yeah, sure, my division wasn't great in the back half of the year, but I think we're forgetting that I was in a division with King, who had an absolute juiced Eagles team for the better half of this league in Madden 20. And so, it wasn't like I was dealing with a trash division for the majority of Madden 20. It was really only the last couple of seasons. And so I would tend to agree that I think You could have pushed me up in there, but depending on if you want to do 2, 3 coaches, whatever it may be.
Push me up in there.
For me, really, the only offensive player that that I feel like got snubbed was Brendan Knowles from the Buccaneers. I think tight end is a position in Madden and really maybe just in the NFL in general that gets overlooked pretty often. These guys put in the work in the pass block, in the run block, in the receiving game, whatever it may be. And Brendan Knowles really did a little bit of everything. Was very, I feel like, underappreciated maybe across the league. But this guy, it felt like when he got the ball in his hands, he really made a play. So I think Brendan Knowles would be really the only offensive player I think missed the cut. And then I think maybe I'm actually just gonna go with one defensive player that I think missed the cut too, and I want to go with Devontae Allen for the Falcons. I know from experience from playing Ben often, this man Allen really was just all over the field at all times. He had acrobat and zoned out. I'm trying to pull up some of his stats here. He had in 2024 he had 10 picks. That was his best year. 2021 had 6. 2023 had 6. 2022 and 2025 had 3 interceptions. Had about 30 or more tackles every season, other than 2023 only had 20 tackles. So a couple forced fumbles throughout his career. I think Devontae Allen could have been in there, could have been in the discussion, maybe bumped Taven Peppers. But in general, I think the committee was pretty spot on.
The mic's on. I gotta say it, even though she told me not to. She was listening in to you guys talking, and I watched the videos back, try to learn. And then she takes my headphones and listens and says, "Oh, it's the annoying guy talking." When Cody was
Wait a second.
Whoa.
That's okay. We need to talk to
Rebecca.
Mrs. Seamass.
Well, and ironically, Connor is the handsome guy when he talks, even though she can't see him. So,
wow. I mean, she's not wrong. I am pretty annoying.
no, she's just a little bit crazy. But back to the Hall of Fame. I think those are great guys that you mentioned that were snubbed for sure. But congratulations to the whole class of 2020, Madden 20, making it to the Better League Hall of Fame. We're going to do closing thoughts here. I think the next show that's going to be on the Better League Network will be the Cycle Award Ceremony. Connor, correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe
that's correct. Whenever Justin wants to get to it, it's only been a couple weeks and he doesn't have a job. So, whenever he finds the free time to get to it, we'll host it on the Better League Network.
Yeah, I mean, he's a busy man, always turning down sex from girls and not working. So it's tough life for Mr. Justin. But anyways, so let's go. She's like, there's a bug. Maybe Cody can get it. He'll chase it away with his annoying voice. What do you think? Anyways, let's go ahead and end this one here. Closing thoughts, and we'll start off with Connor. Closing thoughts on the Pro Football Hall of Fame for Better League Madden 20.
Well, talk about a deserving list of candidates here. You can argue a couple players, compared to a couple of the snubs that we just mentioned, but overall a very deserving Madden 20 class. And I'm excited, I don't know how many of Lucky, Morty, and Ocho are listening to this, but I'm excited in about a month you will get the, much like you had the first ever 4-person Better League Network production, you will get the first ever 4-person podcast, I'm hoping, with myself, Lucky, Morty, and Ocho. I'm really excited to host that, and I'm excited, along, of course, with CMS and Cody, I'm excited to keep bringing you all content throughout the Madden 21 cycle. I think it's going to be the best cycle the Better League's ever had, and thank you all for having me.
Yeah, I think, this was an absolute monster of a cycle in Madden 20. Sad that, I wasn't here for the start. I committed sins and went around and rolled around in the dirt a little bit of Madden Ultimate Team, and it is what it is. But, I came back home. It was my first time ever really leaving a league for the most part, but came back home and found out why I should have never left. This is a great group of gentlemen in this league. Excited for Madden 21. I think this is we really have just an absolute ridiculous amount of talent in this league. We all like to kind of crap on each other and trash talk, whatever it may be. But really, the skill level in this league is at its highest it's ever been, and the hype and the content and whatever it may be is at the heights it's ever been as well. And so I'm really excited for Madden 21 Better League. I think we have really our best seasons, our best cycles ahead of us, which is crazy to think because this is such a good cycle. So just happy to be here. Happy to be welcomed back with open arms after, I messed around, I sinned. But, yeah. And I will say real quick, because I do think that Martin is worth mentioning here. The Cloud talked about D'Angelo Martin. I think is maybe a rather large snub over, maybe he could have quite potentially got over Taven Peppers, because looking at that pedigree, definitely overlooked. But that's what I'll say.
Yeah, okay, that's a snub now that I'm looking at it. But here we are, Taven Peppers Hall of Fame.
Maybe he can make it as a coach next cycle. So that'll end it for this show. If you haven't done so already, please, only 2 people or additional followers in this, and that's just not enough. We need you all to follow. I'm looking at you, Mike, Mr. 1038304724720473. Make sure you hit the heart, the follow button, so we can go ahead and get affiliated. And once we're affiliated, all those subs that you give will go right back into the league, into content, and into Connor's pockets. I mean, how do you not want this? Please go ahead and follow the channel. More content to come. And like they said, this will be the best cycle coming up for Better League. Thank you so much for watching. Mike says content the SpongeBob way. Okay. I can't say the word I'm thinking of. But that'll end it for us today. Thank you all so much for watching. Crew out.
Love you all.